It's been a while since we've seen the old girl. It's the first Jeep I ever bought, the first one I ever restored. I started this project when I was 17 in high school. She's been rode hard, put away wet for years. I'm not gonna lie to you. I mean, we beat the snot out of this thing. I drove through mud holes and water, sand dunes, snow, muck. I mean, just about everything you can do in a Jeep. This thing has been through it and more. The only damages really that I've had over the years is when I drove over a car coming down, the bumperettes caught the back end of that. So those have always been kind of tweaked, and then this actually happened at Haspin Acres. We're out in a ravine and the thing was kind of sideways and I couldn't back out, I could only go forward. And I ended up pulling the fender back right here, and one of the brackets got ripped off for mounting the shovel and axe. She's taking a beating like a champion, and it's one of those things where when I first restored this Jeep, you know, I knew about cars, but not as much as I do now. And there's definitely some things I wish I would have done different. You know, like some of the wiring, you know, I wish I would have put this inline fuse a little bit better, go into the charging system, and you know, wish I would have like loomed some of these wires, just little things like that. The paint job is holding up really nice. You know, the clamps are all going the same way, all those kind of little details. But why I brought you here today is we got a little problem with the old girl. And it got overheated again a few weeks ago where I went to change the thermostat in it, and I left a blue rag inside this housing. And when I started up, we took it to an off-road park, and we're driving, the temp gauge was bouncing all over the place, and then it pegged. So I thought, you know, there might be some air in the system. So I just kind of opened up the cap, ran it around for a bit, and it just stayed pegged, and it ended up blowing the head gasket again. And now we got a little bit of a milkshake going on. We definitely got some blow-by in there. I see some smoke coming out of the dipstick when I pulled it. So definitely things that could have been avoidable. I'm gonna have this engine pulled out and rebuilt while it's still running really nice, just in case, you know, maybe something got cracked on the top, or if we cooked the bearing or something like that. Now, the main reason I am pulling it is because there's some things on the Jeep that I discovered the last time I was doing an oil change. The front axle on this thing, if you grab the input yoke back there, the thing slops in and out about 1/2 inch. So the front axle, the bearings are, you know, probably blown out from all the years of mud and water and, you know, not getting things changed as good as they should have been. I've been pretty diligent about that the last few years, but, you know, when I was 17, 18, not really caring the world there. So that's all messed up. The steering linkage, all this stuff is really worn out. I actually did not replace any of the steering when I first restored the Jeep because, you know, it all seemed to be decent to my 17-year-old eyes, and I should have done that. Like, see all this stuff's laying down, you know, I didn't give it two thoughts back then. And then the last problem we have is actually back here. We've got a lot of slop in the transfer case. The yoke actually slides in and out back here a little bit. It's got a lot of slop. So if you kind of take everything all together, the engine's kind of smoking a little bit. The transfer case needs rebuilt. The front axle needs rebuilt. The steering linkage needs rebuilt. The front leaf springs need replaced. And probably the worst part about all this is that the rear axle is still an open differential. So what I'm going to do is take the engine out, get it rebuilt, and then I'm going to put in the T98 setup that I was originally going to put in the Submarine Jeep. It's going to go in here. And the axles that I was going to build for the Submarine, I got the lockers for them. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to use those as well. So at the end of the day, it's going to retain its engine, it's going to have a different transmission, different axles. It should have a way better crawl ratio, and with it being locked differentials, it should go just about everywhere we want it to. And it'll be a really nice rig to possibly take this one to the Rubicon, depending how time's going to be on the Swap Submarine project. I've got two engines I'm going to pull in the next 2 days. I'm going to pull this one and the one out of the Navy Jeep. So we got to go get hustling right now. I got to flex on the haters. I'm wearing the same shirt I wore when I was restoring this thing back in high school. Still fits like a glove, I might add. First thing I always like to do is I like to start draining the oil and the antifreeze while I'm doing other things, because especially the antifreeze takes absolutely forever if you don't want to spill it. Currently 6:15, we're going to have this bad boy pulled out by 8:15. I'm calling it. Now that's lucky. Distributors don't always slide out that easy, but luckily this thing's only been in here for about 4 years, so we're doing alright. I know I said I'd get it done by 8:15, but here's my excuses for why it's 9:30. A, took a 30-minute break for dinner, and B, the engine was ready to come out at about 8 o'clock, but I decided, well, while the engine's still in there, it'd be a lot easier to pull off all the accessories like the distributor, coil, the air cleaner setup, the thermostat housing, the water pump, oil lines, oil filter, carburetor, generator setup, all that good stuff. This is the last time we're going to see the old carburetor on the Jeep, as well as the Pertronix distributor, which is sitting right there, because we are ditching a lot of this stuff and we're going with the Holley Sniper EFI kit. What Holley's done is for the Mustangs, they got like an inline 6 and they got a single barrel carburetor. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to buy that kit. It's about 750 bucks. It should go on the Willys manifold, and then I'm going to go ahead and transform the distributor to be controlled by the ECU. Then we'll have instant turnkey starting, no more of this pull the choke out, push it back in, pump the gas, hold the gas, let off the gas, carburetor linkage falling apart, and gunking off the engine, because a carburetor, it either runs lean or it runs rich. It never runs where it's supposed to be. So we're going to go ahead and do all that while we do the T98 setup. It's going to be exciting to see this thing totally transformed with the rebuilt engine, the 4-speed tranny, the lockers, the EFI system, and I'm probably going to do something different with the steering. I don't know exactly what yet, but I'm thinking a manual steering conversion. I don't want anything that hangs off the bumper. I like something in here, but if I got the steering figured out, and with everything else going on, I think this thing will be a real trooper. We've got 1,566.3 miles on the Jeep on our first iteration, which it really isn't bad at all. That's actually quite a bit of miles. Most people that restore these, they put about 1,000 or so, then they get bored of them, sell them, and I can't blame them. And if you think about those 1,500 miles, the majority of the miles on my Jeep were obviously off-road, as well as I daily drove this thing to college all the time. And it was only a couple mile drive, but the problem is it was through, a city, so it wasn't like you're rolling down the highway and adding on the miles. So 1,500 miles, but a lot more time.